We're going to cover how to make shapes. Let's just hop right into it. First thing you're going to do is open a new file. Well, obviously, first thing you do is open Illustrator and then open your new file. Now that you have this window open, I am going to go ahead and name my document. And I am choosing 60 inches by 60 inches in inches. So you might want to change this first if yours says something else, and then change this, because if you have this set to pixels or something else first, and then input 60 here, and then decide to change it to inches, it's going to come up to something very small. So make sure that you're in whatever measurement you want to be in first, and then set your inches or whatever you're using. Orientation doesn't matter for us because we actually have a square, and we only want one artboard at this time because we're just going to have a big playground where we can play with what we want to do. The rest of these things really don't matter, but also just to note that you can click on more settings to see other things here, and see it's still put our name in here, and this is the same name that we put in up at the preset details. We have our name here, one artboard, custom sizing because we did the 60 inches. We don't really care about this other stuff, so it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to cancel this because we can just say create from right here. So now we have our big document, and we are going to create a square. That's our easiest and first shape that we have. So you're going to go to your left hand tool panel, and it's the one that looks like a square, and if you hover it over, you probably see something that looks like this. We are just going to click on that and then come back to our artboard. And do you see how our mouse changed? I'm going to go from where we were with our black arrow to kind of looks like a plus sign or a target sign. If at this point you just click, then you'll come up with a menu basically that you can input your measurements in. So let's just say we wanted to create a 5 by 5 inch rectangle. This right now says our measurements are not linked, but we want them, they're the same, and we want them to remain the same. So I'm going to go ahead and say we want it linked, so it looks like two chains linked together. And if we change this one to 5, it'll change both of them. If this is not linked, then you're able to change one to something and one to something else. And so that comes in handy if you want to create an actual rectangle and not a square. So I'm going to go ahead and leave mine at 5 by 5 and say OK. And it gave me a 5-inch square. So if you hit the V on your keyboard, it will take you back to your regular selection tool. And that is just faster than having to go back over there and click all the time. So if you remember that, just click on V, tap V on your keyboard, and it will bring you to this. This little thing down here has a lot of helpful information, but sometimes it's also in the way. So just know that you can grab that and move it wherever you want it to be. I am going to click on the magnify tool. You could also hit your hotkey of Z to get there, and zoom in on this just so we can see this a little better. When I am working on quilt things, I do not want my stroke, which is the outline of this shape, to be very big. I want this to be pretty small so that I can be very accurate, and I can always make it larger later. So I'm going to come up here to my control bar, which if you don't see that, go to Window and drop down here to Control, and it should have a check mark in front of it. If it doesn't, then check it, and then it'll show up. So see, I just undid it and it went away. I'm going to come back here and click it again so it'll show up. This little toolbar is pretty handy, so I recommend that you at least give it a shot if you haven't used it before. So I'm going to go to where it says stroke over here, and I'm going to lower my stroke down to 0.25 just so that it's a very thin black line at this time. So that gives us, if you're having trouble seeing it, you can always make it a little bit bigger. I just like it to be very little, and you can always zoom in more, and so you can get it to where you can see better. Once you zoom into something, or if you're working in here and it's not centered where you want to work, if you hold down the space bar, it'll turn your magnifying glass into a hand, and you can then click and drag to move the working space wherever you want it to be. So I'll leave it here in the middle. I let go of the space bar and it went back to being the magnifying glass. I'm going to hit my V to go back to being the selection tool. So let's say that, let's give this a fill just so you can see it. I'm going to come over here to my color swatches panel on the right hand side. Give that a click. Let's just turn it pink. Oh, I'm in preview mode. No wonder you can't see things, I think. Better yet, I don't think I had it selected. There we go. Okay, so we have a very thin black line around it, and we have a pink fill in here. We're going to get this, see, this little guy can be in the way sometimes. We're just going to get him out of the way. So now we have a square. So we could make a quilt just by duplicating this over and over and over again, a very simple square. So to duplicate it, the fastest thing would be to have your selection tool, so your black triangle tool right here, and then hold down the Alt or Option key. While you're holding that down, click on here and drag. And do you see how now my mouse is turned into a black triangle and a white triangle? That means we're duplicating it. I'm still holding down the Option key and dragging. Once I have it wherever I want it to be, I let go of the mouse first and then the Option key, and now we have duplicated that square. If you want to do that again, hit Command D, and it will just keep duplicating it and duplicating it until you quit. So see, we've duplicated it 4 times. We could just keep going and duplicate it. Let's say that you wanted to start making some columns. We could highlight the whole entire row. So now they're all selected. We could hold down our Alt or Option key. We have a double mouse again, and we're just going to drag that down and drop it. And now we'll hit Command D and we'll have duplicated that again. So easy way to make a bunch of shapes really fast if you're just trying to do something like that. So let's delete everything except for our one here. Let me zoom into that again. So the next thing that most quilters use would be a half square triangle. Easiest way that I found to do this, you can do this a couple of different ways. So we're just going to go through a couple different ways here. First thing you could do is get the direct selection tool, which is this white triangle over here on the left hand tool panel. Click on that, and then if we come over here, there's an anchor point here. See how this one's white and this one's blue? The blue one is selected. So I have 3 white ones and 1 blue one. This one's selected. I can hit the delete key, and that gives me now a triangle. I was about to say a rectangle, but obviously it's a triangle. If we go back to the selection tool, you can see that it still looks like a box here, but it's not a box. It's just this triangle. So what I want to do is remove the stroke just to see. And see, what we've lost here is our stroke line on the outside. So that is not my favorite way to do it because you don't have this connecting line here anymore. So I'm going to undo all of that. So visually it works, but as far as filling and for different things like that, it may not be your best solution on down the road. It would be a quick solution now, but not maybe the best one later. So what I like to do is to grab my line tool, line segment tool, which it just looks like a little line over here on the left-hand toolbar. Click on that. First up here, I'm going to unselect this, get my line selection tool, and then I'm going to come over here and hover where this point is on an anchor. And so I'm going to click on that anchor, and then I'm going to click and drag until I'm down here on this other anchor. Oops, I dropped the mouse. So now we have a line running through our through our square, our rectangle, whatever you want to call it. Grab our selection tool again, and we're going to highlight the whole thing. So now both items are selected, the line and the square. We are going to come to the Pathfinder tool, which is here. Once again, if you don't see it on your toolbar on the right, then come to Window up at the top menu, drop down, and then you'll see I've got Pathfinder checked here, so it's showing up in my toolbar over here. So once we have that, everything is selected here. We're going to use this one that says divide. Click on that. And then now you'll notice that this says ungroup. So that means it's divided something in here and it's telling us that we probably need to ungroup it. If we don't do that, it's still one shape. But if I come here and click ungroup, then I can come in here and move that shape apart. Now, if we go in here and change our fill to nothing, you can see that we actually have two separate triangles. So easy way to know that you've got the lines everywhere you need them to go, they're filled in, you're good to go, and it's a relatively easy process. So I'm going to undo some of this and show you another way. So I'm just going to go back until I get rid of that line. Sometimes if you don't click right on that anchor when you're adding your line, then it might not split the way you want it to. So let's just say I thought I was on the anchor, but I was barely off the anchor. And I'm going to be barely off the anchor over here so that we know for sure this one's not joining and this one may or may not be joining. Then we're going to grab our selection tool, highlight everything, go to our Pathfinder tool and click divide again. And we don't even have an option to ungroup. It couldn't divide anything because this part right here was not connected. So there's no way for it to divide that out. So if that happens to you and something is not dividing like you think it should, then look for open areas like this because that will keep your shape from dividing. So I'm zoomed in really large right now. To go back, you can click here and move up. It'll turn the magnifying glass into a negative sign, which will reduce it for you. You can also hold down the option key, Alt Option key, which would turn it into a negative to reduce it as well. So easy way to get that done. Okay, so let's undo that one. You can also grab your line and let's say we want to make sure we get it. But now if you're looking closely, you can see that I haven't hit the anchor point here or here. And I know I need to because I want to split this in the exact half square triangle. So I'm going to go back and grab my direct selection tool over on the left hand side, click it, and then click off your line so nothing's selected, and then come click this anchor point. Once again, this one's blue, this one's white, so we know that we've hit this anchor point. We can grab that now and see one staying still and this one's moving, and we can come in here and it'll snap to our anchor point that's already there. Then we'll click off of that, come down here and click on the anchor point and come here and click that. So just so you know, that'll give you the anchor points, but also I want you to see, and I can try to zoom into this a little bit again as well. I'm going to move it up here and try to make it really big for you. A little bit too big. Okay, so we've got this point here and we've got this point here. So if we want to make sure that we're dividing, we can grab this anchor point of the line and pull it. And do you see right now how it turned pink, and up in the upper left-hand corner it says line extension. That means that we are moving this point out. We're just extending the line. We're making the line longer. If I move this point, the line extension goes away and it turns blue. And then here you can see my line extension's back on. But if I'm off at all right here, then it will take that line extension away. So if you extend your line out, and we know we were on our corner, we come up here, same thing, we can extend our line out, and now the line extension shows at the bottom. My line's pink, unless I come off of it, come back to that, and that way we know we've gone through the whole square. We know we've bisected it with this line. So go back to your direct selection tool, grab everything, and then come over to the right hand side and click Pathfinder Divide, click Ungroup, and then click off of it and then move it away. But do you see, you notice how it took off that extra part of that line that was hanging down here? Because there's nothing there anymore. So just an easy way to make sure that you've totally divided the square if you're having trouble knowing where to go. Delete this rectangle because we talked about one way to make it. I want to show you another way to make it. So I'm just going to select them both and hit the delete key to get rid of that. Then I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool, which is here on the left, click on it again. So last time we just clicked and it brought up the menu box. This time I'm going to actually click and not let go and drag. And now I have a free form version way to create a rectangle. So you can look at the little measurement panel that's happening on the right hand bottom side to see how big it actually is. But then you have to really watch that to see where you are. If you know you want to have a square, if you hold down the shift key, so I haven't let go of my mouse yet, but if I hold down the shift key now, then it constrains it to only being a square. If I let go of the shift key before I let go of my mouse, then it will go back to being the free form. So I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to watch those little measurements and I'm going to try to get close to 4 inches, but this can get hard because it's, there we go. So we let go. So we're going to hope that turned out to be 4 inches. But if we look up here in the top in our menu thing, you can see that I actually got 3.9968 inches. Well, that's not a lot right in one square, but that can add up if you're putting several blocks into your quilt. So let's go change this. So the width and the height are still linked together. You can tell by the link panel here. So we're going to change that to 4. And I'm just going to hit tab and it changed them both to 4 so that now I know that my triangle will be 4 inches. So if you're off on something and you've been working and you're not positive, you can click on your shape and then up here in the control bar, you can come up here and look to see what measurement that is. So just wanted to give you another way to create your rectangle. So you can click on your rectangle tool, click on your keyboard, on your artboard, come up with your measurements here. If it's linked first and you know you want a square, then you can input that and it'll do 4 and say okay. Or you can click and drag, freeform, hold down the shift key if you want it constrained, and then always change the measurement up in the top control panel. So that covers our rectangles or squares. I'm going to go ahead and delete those so we can cover something else. So the next one that I want to cover will be, we're going to go back to the rectangle tool, but if you click on this and hold down, it brings up another menu. So we're going to cover the ellipse tool really fast. I know a lot of you aren't going to use circles in your quilt, but you might want to make a drunkard's path or something like that. So we're going to click on the ellipse tool and now it's changed the tool, but you can always get back to it by clicking and holding to change to any tool here that we're going to talk about today. So we're on the ellipse tool. This happens the same way as the rectangle tool did. So now we have our target thing here. It probably has a better name, but we're going to stick with that one. If I just click here, it's going to ask me the width and the height. Basically because we want a circle, we want these to be the same. If we leave these unlinked and we put in, let's say 2 inches and let's leave it at 1.38 and say okay, it's going to actually give me an oval. So same as the rectangle, you can freeform this to be an oval or you can create a circle. So if we click again, and let's say we want 2 inches, and we cannot click this right now because they're not the same. So I have to get this the same, 2 inches by 2 inches, and say okay, then it's going to give me a 2-inch circle here. So 2 inches, I believe if I'm not mistaken, is the diameter. There we go. I'm going to get it. So yeah, it also shows you here in our shape panel that we've got 2 inches width and height, but in a circle that actually is the diameter of the circle, not the radius. So keep that in mind. So we can also come down here, just like we did with the rectangle, click and drag. So freeform is when we're just clicking with our mouse and dragging with our mouse. I'm still holding down my mouse, and if I click the shift key, then it will automatically give me a perfect circle instead of an oval. So there's your circle. I'm going to delete these. And we're going to go back and click on that same tool again and click and hold. We're going to go to the polygon tool. So if you guys are into EPP or Y seams or other things like that within your quilt, this is one of my favorite tools because you can create hexagons and polygons and other many-sided shapes, but those are the main two that I use. So same thing, if you click, it's going to give us the measurement. It's the radius. So if you're like me, I have no clue what size radius I need in the shape. So that I just click in something and then I'll tell you how we change it. So you decide, let's say we want to make a hexagon, so we know it has 6 sides. Let's be easy here and just say 1. And we're going to go ahead and say OK. So it's given me this shape. And it looks pretty good, but we know that we had a 1-inch radius and we're not exactly sure because it looks like it's probably a 1-inch here and maybe here. Not positive what's going on with this, so I don't want to base anything off of these measurements. But make sure it's selected, come up to your control bar and click on that shape properties panel right here. This thing is going to be your lifesaver for this shape. So click on that. It shows that we're at 6 sides. If we decided here that we wanted to change it to the pentagon, am I going to say the right shape? The hexagon, whatever, I'm going to stick with my hexagon. And then what we can do right here is if you use paper pieces or you use any of the EPP shapes, they measure by the side panel, by this here, not by any radius, not by any measurement across the middle. We're measuring for each side. So I clicked on here. So this little thing right here, do you see how it's darker on that one side? It's showing us that we're going to measure that side length of the shape. So we're going to say in here that we actually want the side of our shape to be 2 inches. Oops, not 22. Let's try just 2. And then hit tab or enter. And now it's created our shape to be 2 inches. So if we created a 2-inch rectangle, excuse me, a 2-inch triangle, then we could attach it on there and it would fit as well. So just know that's an easy way to do that. If you wanted to create a half hexie, then you would use your Pathfinder and divide it just like we did when we were doing our square, turning it into half square triangles. So you would click on your line segment tool. And in this case, we could just draw a line across there. And to make sure we're not going up or down, I'm going to hold down the Shift key because that's going to constrain it to only going straight out. And I'm just going to let go. It's not centered. You can see, if I zoom in here, you can see that I'm not centered on that line, and we definitely want it to be centered on the line. So what I'm going to do, because it's going to be more accurate than I am most of the time, is I'm going to come over here to my selection tool, make sure everything's selected, so the hexagon and the line, and then I'm going to come over here and I want to do the vertical align center. So I'm going to click on that. And now you can see that it lined that line with the middle of this hexagon. So both things are still selected. I can come over here to my Pathfinder tool and I can click divide. Don't forget to ungroup, click off the shape, and now you can divide the shape. So just an easy way to do some paper piecing shapes here that you might use in a project. So I'm going to Control Z all the way until I get rid of the line because I just want to keep the hexagon shape that I had. Oops, I did something weird. We don't want that. I am going to shrink this down a little bit so you can see. So the next shape that I use quite a bit is a 60-degree triangle. Create a 60-degree triangle. I'm going to move this out of the way because I want to show you how to create a jewel shape later. So let's just hold down our space bar and move this guy over, and we'll work right in here for just a minute. Okay, we're going to go back to our left-hand menu here, click where the rectangle tool used to be, and we're going to click on the star tool. And then you can click here, and by changing points up or down, you can decide how many points you want on your star, or on our star being, which is going to be our triangle. So we want 3 points on here. And you can say, okay. My issue is that you're not exactly sure what size this is. So this is a little bit haphazard feeling to me and not my favorite method for doing a triangle, but I wanted to show you that that's possible. I am going to delete this. I'm going to show you how I create my triangles to get the exact measurements that I want. I'm going to come to the line tool, click on that. I'm going to click on my artboard. I want to have my line, I want this to fit attached to my hexagon in a minute, so I want my length to be 2 inches. And I want this line to just go straight across my artboard. So my angle here is going to be 0. We're going to say okay. I'm going to bump up this stroke so you can see it pretty good for just a minute. So there's my first line. I'm still in the line tool. I'm going to click again. And I still want 2 inches, but I'm going to change this degree to be 60. And I'm going to say okay. So now it gives me a line that's at a 60-degree angle to this line. If you grab your selection tool, you can grab this line and join it. So do you see where it said intersect right there when I had a hold of it? It says intersect. So now these two lines are joined, or overlapping, I should say, right here at this corner. We want to get the other side of this triangle, so I'm gonna, this one's still selected. Go up to your top menu bar, click on Object. So I'm at the very top of my screen, click on Object. We want to transform and reflect. So just think of it like a reflection in the mirror. So we're reflecting the line. Mine I have on preview. So it's showing you what it's gonna do. So if you don't have preview, you won't be able to see anything here. So check that so you can see what's gonna happen. We can tell it just flipped vertically from facing one direction to facing the other direction. So if you did horizontal, vertical, play with your different things here, and then make sure preview selected so you can see what's going to happen. So we don't want to just say okay, because that would still just give us one line. What we want to do is click on copy so that it'll make a duplicate line. So click copy. This was our original line. This is the one we just made. We're going to grab it and hold down the shift key at the same time so that it will just move. I can't move it. I can move it up or down, but it's going to move in increments. So I'm just dragging it across. And now I've got all my intersect smart guides showing up so that we know that it's in the right place. So I'm going to let go of the mouse and then let go of the shift key. So the next thing we need to do is join a path, because if I selected all this right now, I won't be able to fill it because there is no shape. This is just 3 lines sitting next to each other. They're not one shape. So to do that, we're going to grab our direct selection tool, so the white arrow. We are going to just go over one point. So these points are blue. That means these are selected. These are white. That means they are not selected. And we are going to join the path. So if we come up here into Object, up in the very top menu, Object, come down here to Path and Join, then it put those two together. So what's happened here now is it has combined the 2 lines on the side, but it has not combined the line on the bottom. To see that, I'll go back to my selection tool and see how I can drag that away now, and there's no line across this section right here. So I'm going to Command Z to undo that, Command Z, and we're back together. So I'm going to finish joining these by selecting this corner. And if you go back to Option, Path, Join, you'll see right here that our hotkeys for this, our shortcut keys, are Command J. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Join while we're here, but we have one more corner we need to join. So I'm going to select those, and on my keyboard, I'm going to hit Command J, and now we've joined all of them. So if we go back to our selection key, you can see that we can move that. We can change the fill, whatever we want to do, and they're connected now. So that's the best way to get a triangle in with the exact measurement here, the exact angle that you want to have here. So if you're making English paper piecing shapes, or you know exactly what measurement of the angle you need for the piece that you're trying to put in your quilt, that is the fastest way I've figured out to do it. So I'm going to drag this back over to my hexagon, because another shape in English paper piecing that you see quite a bit is a jewel, which is basically just a triangle set right on top of a hexagon. So let's change our stroke on this so that we don't have such a big stroke back down to the 0.25 so that it matches our shape down here. We're going to grab a hold of this and we are just going to snap them together. So we're looking for that intersect. So once you see that intersect, then you know you can let go of your mouse. So we have that. And now we are going to select both of them because right now it's two different shapes. We don't want two different shapes. We want one continuous shape. We are going to come to our Pathfinder over on the right-hand side menu. Click on that. What we were using before was divide. So we were dividing our shapes and creating half square triangles or creating our half hexagon. In this case, we want to join them, or unite them, it's calling it. So we're going to click Unite, and now we've created one entire shape. So if we come to our selection tool, we move this, there are no two shapes. You will have anchor points where it joined them, but you can tell this is now one shape as it changed our fill. If we come in here and mess with the fill again, you can see that it's still one shape and not two. So with this, as you keep designing with your quilt, you can leave this here because it's actually showing you where our triangle was if you're wanting to match other things up to it. If you don't want those there, you can always delete them by coming to your pen tool, which is this one here, clicking and holding, and come down to Delete Anchor Point tool. And once you have that anchor point tool there, you can come back over here and just click on the anchor points and it will delete them. And that way now you just have the very minimal anchor points you need to make this shape. That just helps keep the file clean. But there are times you might want that anchor point in there to help you find other shapes, or when you're trying to put this up to something else so that you know where that is. Okay, so let's see. Let's backtrack a little bit on this, because there's other ways to combine shapes and I would like for you guys to see both of them. So now I'm back to the point where I had two shapes and we are going to select both of them again. You can come over here this time to the left-hand menu and we are looking for Shape Builder tool. So it almost looks like a snowman laying on its side with an arrow. This is the thing you're looking for here. And click on that. And you'll see how it's putting this grid kind of thing over the shape that my mouse is over. So if I click and drag right here, it just combined that into one shape for me. So we are basically now at the same point we were when we did the Pathfinder Unite. We just did our shape builder and combined it here. So I'm going to undo that. Let's add some other triangles around here just so you can see how we can change things with that. So I'm going to just select the triangle and I am going to hold down the Alt or Option key to copy it. So my mouse is on here, hold down the Alt or Option. You can see I have the double-headed mouse now. So I can click this and drag it. And I'm going to drag it down here until it intersects with that. Let go of my mouse, let go of the Option key. But I want to copy it again, so I'm going to hold down the Option key. And let's make ourselves one more. And we're going to do it again, but this time we're going to have to rotate it because I want to make us a star, like we've attached triangles around this whole shape. So you can grab this on this, where you come to it's selected, and where you see that double arrow right there, that means that you can grab that and rotate it. If you hold down the Shift key, you should be able to rotate it in certain amounts. And mine's not set up to do that, so I'm going to ignore that. Never mind. We're going to come in here. Okay, you see the little measurement on the side? It says 60 degrees, so we know we did the right thing. If it was at anything else that's not a 60 or a 30 or a 90, 180, any of those things, then 150, then we'd know that we don't have the right angle for the shape we're working on. I so wish my geometry teacher had taught me quilting in geometry class because I probably would have paid a lot more attention. But now we're going to grab that shape. We can snap that right into here. So now it's intersected. And now we can just copy it and put it on the other two sides. So we're going to Alt or Option, drag, Alter option and drag. Okay, so now we have our whole shape here. I'm going to put this down a little bit and move it over so you can see. If we wanted to combine certain shapes or take away shapes, we can still use the shape builder tool right here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything. I'm going to get this little bar out of my way. So we've got all the shapes are selected. We are going to go to our shape builder tool and we are going to see what we could combine. So we could combine these two shapes and end up with the jewel shape and just the triangles on the outside, or I can undo that. We could, let's see, what other shape can we make out of this? We could make a big triangle because we went over all three shapes. And so now it's given me this, sorry, come here, we want that to just unselect. There we go. So now you can see we have these are three small triangles and we have our one big triangle here in the middle. We can undo that. So we're back to our original shape. We could come in here, go back to my shape builder tool. We could, let's see, what would we want to do? We could combine, really that's about our best tool right there, is just to save the whole triangle. I should have probably left that. And then if you wanted to combine these other two, you could, but you're not going to have a paper piece shape that's going to be in that shape. So it would have to be something that you would have to make from there. But good point of combining this right here is now we can turn this into diamonds pretty easily by grabbing our line tool. And we are going to connect from an anchor point to an anchor point and another one through to the other side. And now you can see we're going to have these diamond shapes in here. So we don't necessarily care about this, but we care about these diamond shapes. So if we come to our selection tool, select that again, we can click on the shape builder tool. And if we hold down the option key, it actually gets rid of shapes for us. So let's get rid of those. I'm going to go ahead and go over these lines to get rid of those, and that has left me with just a diamond. So that's one way you could get a diamond. So let's cover one other way to get a diamond. Is basically the same way we built our triangle. We're going to come in here to our line selection tool, our line segment tool, sorry. We're going to click, and let's say we want it to be just 2 inches. We want it right now to be 0. We're going to say OK. So we have our 2-inch line. We're going to make our other 2 lines by changing this to 60 and say OK. And we're going to click this and drag it, connect it where it's intersected, and then we're going to go to Object, Transform, Reflect, and it's already set up to do that with our preview because we did it before. And we're just going to say Copy, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key just so it stays on that line more or less, intersect. So we have our points here. We're going to select our top point with our direct selection tool, Command J, come down here, Command J, come over to the other side, Command J, so that now we have a complete triangle. We're going to shrink this back down. And raise it up, and we're going to select it. So we have our triangle selected. We're going to go up to Object, Transform, Reflect. And in this case, we want to reflect it horizontally. So I want it to be upside down, and we still have our preview on so you can see what it's going to be, and we're going to copy it. So now we've got one rectangle up on top of the other one. So let's give this one a color so it's easier to grab. We're going to pull this down. If you hold the Shift key, it'll bring it straight down, and we've got our intersect lines, so now we can let go. Then we can highlight both of them, and you can either come over to the Pathfinder and do the Unite, or you can go to the Shape Builder tool on the left and highlight them to combine. So now you've got a 60-degree diamond, and they would also fit in with the diamond that we made from all the stuff we had going on a while ago. So let's make one more here, and then we'll leave it with that. So I'm holding down the Option key, click and drag. And let's talk about the rotate tool while I'm here. So many things to tell you guys, it's hard to cram it all into one lesson. So I just copied this and drug it over here. I'm on top of this other rectangle that's underneath here, but what we're going to do is rotate it on this point right here. So we're highlighting the one we're about to work with. We're going to go to our tool panel on the left, and you're going to see this thing that kind of looks like an arrow that's zipping along. We're going to click on that, and it gives us this little target, blue target mark right here in the middle. Well, we don't want to rotate it around the middle. We want to rotate it around this anchor point. So I'm going to come over here and click on the anchor point. And then I just have my mouse, and I'm going to grab the shape and just tilt it up. And it's rotating from that anchor point. And I can rotate it until it is aligned with my other points. So it's aligning here and here. And that way it gets me that exact shape. So now, by combining 3 diamonds, we've basically made another hexagon shape. So you could do a tumbling blocks or something like that with that, and just keep copying and pasting this all together. So if you were going to do a tumbling block, I would select all of these and group it, and then do the Option, copy and drag, and just start pasting these guys together to create your tumbling block quilt. So I hope that helps you guys and gives you some things to play with and to try. And I'll be sure to let you know when I have some more classes coming out so that you can play some more. Thank you.